And good evening, warriors. It's Auntie Shazza here, the Emoji Warrior from Down Under. And tonight, my special guest is none other than Paul Williams. Hi, Paul, and welcome to the
Hi,
Warriors.
Sharon. How are you? Great to connect with you here.
Thank you for coming on our program. We were so
My
delighted.
pleasure.
We were
It's
so
my
happy.
pleasure.
Thank you. So, because we're just a little group, but we're helping to reduce the stigma and we're getting the word out there.
Amazing.
So
I
really
appreciate all that you do. It's great.
Oh, thank you. And we've got a hello from Tessa. She's one of our warrior coaches. Hi, Tessa.
Hi, Tessa.
Yeah. So Paul Williams, look, I've been watching this fellow and thinking, now, how do you describe this man in a nutshell? And I said today, he's a modern day guru. I don't know how you feel about that, but or perhaps a prophet,
big word, Sharon. I was hoping you were going to say something nice. I wasn't expecting that.
Something challenging. But Paul has a following of 160,000 people, so he must be doing something right. And we welcome him to the show. Paul has just released a book about meditation that we'll tell you about in a moment. And he has a process that's called Quantum Healing. We'll find out more about that. He's a hypnotherapist as well. And he's like a lot of us in here, he's come from adversity. So he has a very interesting background and story to tell about mental health. So thank you, Paul. We've got Adam saying hello and Karen, hello. Welcome,
hi, Karen.
Everyone. And Adam says it's 1 year since I became a follower of the Mental Health Warriors. Fantastic, mate.
Good on you.
All right, so we'll be talking all things mental health tonight. And Paul, just before we launch into your story, we do usually start in here with a few fun questions. Is that okay?
Right, absolutely. Far away.
All right. So the first one's nice and easy. Favorite color and why?
I think teal. I find it really calming. So teal, which is a really light blue color, almost like a baby blue.
Yeah.
I just find it a really soothing color, and it's one of those colors that I don't wear a lot of color, but when I do, I often will wear a variation of blue. I find it really calming.
Lovely. Nice and great explanation. I like that. Adam, I'll get to your question in a couple of minutes. Just hold your horses, buddy.
And I love the keenness, Adam. That's great.
And Carolyn says hello, and Gail. Hi, Gail and Carolyn.
Hi, Gail. Hi, Carol.
And all right, so tea or coffee?
Oh, you know what? I would have to say I'm more moving towards tea. For its relaxing effect. Being from Melbourne, I'm a self-confessed coffee addict, but as the time has gone on, I've cut down my consumption. Now I'm getting into some different types of tea and finding that it has a really relaxing effect. So particularly at night, because I think coffee is quite stimulating and can keep people up. So
yes,
tea is good.
Okay. And here's one for our mental health warrior queen, Adam's wife, Kerry. She always likes this question. Dogs or cats?
Oh, you know what? I love both, but if I had to choose, it would be dogs.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Kerry. Kerry's a cat lady.
I do love cats, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice to love both. I love both. And the
Yeah,
big one,
how could you not? And they bring, talking about mental health,
yeah,
I think anyone that does struggle with mental health, I think it's almost essential, if you can, to have a
yeah,
pet of some
yeah,
kind.
absolutely. Totally agree with that. I know I rely on our little Basil, the faulty dog, regularly for comfort. And of
Right.
course, Adam's chimed in with the question that I was about to ask Adam. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Well, I actually, I'll tell you a little story. Each week I call it a cheat meal. On Sunday nights, I eat pretty healthy during the week, but I allow myself one really naughty meal a week, and it's been pizza the last couple of weeks. And
Okay.
I actually had pineapple on my pizza on Sunday night, and you know what? I liked it. So I haven't
Oh,
had it for a while, but I would have to say yes, Adam. Definitely enjoy a bit of pineapple on pizza.
there you go. Because Adam and Kerry have a big debate about that. So, and Adam says it's Kerry's favourite question. All right. Well, before
Fair
I
enough.
ask you about your story, I guess I'll ask Adam's question because he is kind of the boss of this. And
Absolutely.
Sandy says you're also from Melbourne. Yes, Paul is from Melbourne.
Yeah.
Um, Adam says, I hate pineapple. It's rubber and shouldn't exist. Yeah, we'll just delete that comment. Um, he's asking, Paul, this is a big one to start, just to start you off with something nice and light. What does mental health mean to you?
Good question.
Mm,
For me, it has such personal roots because it's something that I have gone through the process, even from a young age. And I think back then, I'm not a spring chicken here. I don't well know if we'll go into my age, but certainly when I was growing up and suffering, if you like, the effects of mental health, we didn't even have a label for that.
yeah.
So for me, it's a very personal thing. It's a journey that I've traversed, and I like to say overcome. But I also recognize it's something that, like many conditions in life, it's something that is sort of a part of us. So
Mm.
I know there's been a lot of stigma with mental health over the years, and I think we're getting to a better understanding where we're maybe releasing a lot of stigmas around it. But it's a very personal thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, great answer. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Adam. Um, so you've had an amazing story, and I've listened to a few of your interviews over the last few weeks, and
Yeah,
and
great.
I was amazed to hear. It's very easy to look at someone who's, young, good looking, and successful, and and think, oh, what would he know about problems or. But I heard you
Mm.
speaking about, some years back being overweight and depressed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I certainly struggled, particularly early on in life. I was really bullied quite
Wow.
badly at school, and so that's where I guess, my journey started. And I was always ostracized. I was very different from the collective of people around me, and I was very shy, extremely shy. And I don't think that really helped me too much because I would really shy away from any kind of form of confrontation. I recently was talking to my mum, and she reminded me the fact that, why didn't you tell me that you were bullied at school? It
Mm.
was something that I felt really ashamed of. I was embarrassed of it. So I didn't share it with anyone. And so I really suffered in silence for most of my schooling, and it did really
Mm.
affect my schooling. I mean, I didn't even go to a lot of classes because the bullying was so bad.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know that was part of the story. So yeah. And
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
as a teacher, I see the bullying in the schools, and oh boy,
Mm,
I will always take them aside and have a talk with them and try to get
mm.
the kids who are bullying to see how much it hurts, the
Yeah,
recipient.
it's a tough
Yeah,
one to educate on because
yeah,
There's a lot of different factors involved in why kids do it. It
Yeah.
doesn't see a problem that's dissipating, but I think the awareness around it is certainly more in the forefront of
Yes.
consciousness now than it was when I grew up. And I certainly felt a lot of shame around it. I think when you're being ostracized and you are different, which I fall into that category quite well, I embrace that these days, but certainly as a
Yeah.
child, I felt like there was something intrinsically wrong with me, and
Oh, yeah.
certainly the kids around me would, toe that line. So it was a very isolating experience. But I do try to look at the positives in life, and I think when I reflect on my life, and particularly these tougher times, and I did this through the process of writing my book recently, is that I think because I have gone through these challenging, horrific circumstances in some ways, it's given me the empathy for other people. And it's that empathy that really drives most of the work that I do today. So I have this sort of different relationship with it now, that I value empathy as a strong part of my experience, and being able to help and work with others. So there are things that, I recognize that are bad, that were perceived bad, that happened on early in life. But in a way, I'm glad that I had those experiences, because it's given me that empathy for others and what they go through.
Yeah, that makes great sense. And we've just got a couple of other people who've dropped in. Julie's here. Hi, Jules.
Hi.
Karen's here, and I saw Tracy up there, and a couple of questions. I think I'll do Adam's question and then Karen's. So Adam says, a question for you both. What do you think a bully's mindset looks like, and why do you think they choose to bully people?
Yeah. Do you want to start answering first?
Oh, thank you, Paul. Look, I see it in schools all the time, and I
Mm,
think there is that element of the mirror, and kids sort of, feeling insecure themselves, and so they
mm,
create this insecurity in others, perhaps, and often we do find, that the bullies have been bullied at home or somewhere else. Um,
sure.
it's a kind of
Yeah.
a power thing, isn't it? I mean, I spoke to some kids today that 3 boys were passing around the lunchbox of the other boy and wouldn't give it back. And then he came to
Mm,
me, and then I called them over and said, what's that about? And can you see that he's upset? Can you see that? Can you look at his face and see that he's quite upset? And then they all started blaming each other, and we sorted it out. And I did say to them, well, what is that called when 3 people kind of, gang up on another child? And one of them said bullying. I said, yeah, it kind of is. I mean, and I think it
mm.
would be really nice if you could make an apology. Well, next thing they were all hugging and, you know,
Oh, that's a good outcome. I
it
like
was
that.
lovely. Yeah, I mean, they initiated the hug, so that was beautiful. But
Yeah,
and I think it's just that reconciliation between the parties that's so important. So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think the bullies, yeah, they come from a place themselves of hurt. Um,
Oh, I think, yeah, look, I always say this saying to people I work with is, hurting people hurt people.
yes.
And generally when people are hurting, there's hurt inside that person. So I
Mm,
think, we can kind of maybe try to exercise a form of compassion or understanding that the person is in a great mental state and they're acting out based on the disease that they're experiencing within. But this is why I think when we collectively bring this stuff more into the conversation,
yeah.
we can better understand and educate each other in this process. And maybe those bullies need support. Something
Yeah.
that I notice with bullies as well is that if they don't resolve these issues, they can emerge as adults as being the bullies. And we see this sometimes in positions of power. People in positions of power will use their power to ostracize, to control other people. So it is actually quite prevalent in our world today, these bully archetypes everywhere we see it. And don't we come across them every day in
Oh,
adult
yes.
life?
Yeah. It's a shame. But yeah, great answer. And Karen says, how best can a parent help a bullied child?
Yeah, good question there. I think, compassion plays such a strong role, and understanding, and knowing, well, where does that come from? And then I always take this approach with my clients, is rather than treating the symptom, looking at the symptom, which is obviously bullying, but what is the root cause that is causing it? And when you go to the root of any issue and work on the root, generally the cause takes care of itself. So I would be, mediating with the child and getting to really understand what is the root of what's causing that behavior, and then work on that.
Yes. Yeah, great. We've opened a can of worms here. We've got Jenny says hello. That's easy. Lillian Reiki, who's a parenting strategist, friend of mine. Out of adversity comes an equivalent or greater benefit. So I think that goes back to your story. Steve Knapp, Mindset Warrior, says, what an awesome value. Empathy is power. Tracy says, when my son, and hi, Tracy, when my son was bullied, I went to the bully's parents. Luckily, it went well.
You lucked out
there. Yeah, well done, Trace.
Sometimes it don't go so well.
Exactly. Well, because sometimes that the parents are bullies themselves, but and that's
absolutely
how they create sometimes the child who bullies. Sometimes.
Well, children mirror often the behavior, and they mirror their parents. So often, totally, that's what they know is familiar to them, and they reflect that externally in school or other environments they're in. So,
right. Yeah. And Tracy says, Karen says, exactly. My son says he's glad he was bullied because of what it taught him and how to feel empathic for others. That's great. Lillian says bullies usually have low self-esteem. Yep. Tessa says it's so good to recognize the experiences we have. If we step back, we can see how those experiences can help others. Steve says great outcome. Karen's went to parents as well. So surprised by their child's behavior, as he had been bullied himself, and so they thought he knew better. Gosh, I can't keep up with these comments, Paul. We've opened the can. Fantastic philosophy, says Steve. Most bullies need tons of support. Thanks for all your comments, everyone. We'll get to Paul's story in a minute.
Great audience here.
We've picked up a passionate issue. So spot on, Paul, says Lillian. Adam's asking everyone to share. We need to build up the bully as much as we can. And I've just lost a couple here because, here we go. Tracy says mine were 2. Do you think bullying in an adult form comes from childhood solely or a learned practice? That's interesting.
Yeah, I've got a theory. I think most adult bullies we see, my guess would be they were bullies as children, and I've certainly seen that when I've spoken to people and asked about their past and got an idea. So I think this stuff emerges in our childhood, and then unless it's resolved, it will play out later in life. So,
and I think that's where we do need good teachers who understand this stuff, and then we need people like yourself who and Lillian and all the people who are here, to help people to understand what bullying looks like, and then the teachers can sort of take it and run with it and create that empathy among the children. So we do a lot of talk in schools now about bullying, which I'm pleased.
Let me ask you this question. Do you see bullying amongst the adults in the school, amongst the teachers? Do you also
sometimes within the staff?
Isn't it interesting?
It's interesting,
we can
isn't it?
sometimes want to resolve that with the younger generation, but then we don't get it right as an older generation. So you can see how, big this whole area is, and
Yes.
how it needs more awareness. And, you know, women experience bullying from men and vice versa, and different, you know, racial groups as well. It's like I said, when we get to the root of this and the root of prejudice and stuff, it's I describe it in the format, if you like, of consciousness. When we have a higher consciousness, then all of this stuff begins to dissipate away. But we have to do the work, you know, and a lot of people don't want to do the work, or they're not at that level. But when people do, it's amazing how people can really transform any area of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do talk in here about doing the work and raising levels of consciousness and how to do that. Yeah.
Right.
So was there any more to, I mean, obviously you've just given us snippets of your story. And so family background, childhood, bullying, and then
I mean, my parents, they separated at quite a young age. Well, I was at quite a young age. I was 3 at the time. And so I kind of had you know, I mean, I had loving parents. I still saw my dad every weekend, but I sort of had a difficult childhood, a very isolated childhood. And I was very different from a lot of other kids my age. I didn't play sport. I had probably enjoyed being buried in a book more than, you know, participating in sport. I was actually really uncoordinated as a kid. So people would throw a ball at me and it would hit me in the face and hurt me. So I, you know, childhood was challenging, definitely, for me. And I developed a lot of, you know, probably unhealthy behavior around eating or not eating, and went through all those different things, put on weight, lost weight, was too skinny, was too, you know, too heavy. So I certainly have experienced, you know, lots of different areas that I can help others with, for sure.
And then you found yourself overweight and depressed. And that was what, 10 years ago, did you say? Or?
That was, my mid-20s was sort of that era. And food, I think, certainly for me and a lot of clients I work with, this is the root cause. A lot of people look at the fat, like I was talking about earlier. That's the symptom. But what is the thing that is driving that? And for me, what it was is a, you know, lack of belief in myself. It was coming from a place of being in a negative environment, depression. And the only thing that, you know, made me feel better when I was, you know, going through those depression or bouts of depression was to eat. You know, I didn't turn to drugs. Food was my drug. And I got to a really unhealthy stage where I didn't, I said this in an interview before, is I wouldn't even look in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw. So I found my way around it is I just never looked in a mirror. And one day I did, and I really didn't like what I saw. And that was the catalyst for change. And there was a number of things that were happening in my experience, but I decided and made a decision in that moment that I wasn't going to be that person anymore. And I worked very hard over a period of years. It did take me years to get to a place where I was happy with what I saw in the mirror. But that was also a lot of emotional work. I've done a lot of work over the years. I don't say that to big note myself, but I do it to inspire other people that we really have the tools and the power to completely transform our lives. And we may need a mentor along the way, and this, you know, but within us, we do have so much more power than we realize to transform our lives. And that's what I spend my life now teaching and helping other people do.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's why you've got such a good following, you know, because you've got those tools, but you had that experience, that life experience. So I'm just going to go back through the comments. There were a few here. I won't get to all of them, guys, just so we can get more from Paul. And lots of great advice, great show, says Carolyn. And then a couple more comments about the bullies. And then Adam says, going back to mental health, do you think mental health challenges come from home life or school life for kids? And if so, why?
Yeah, look, good question. I think, I think it's individual. Sometimes it's, abuse within the family. It could be, alcohol could be a factor from either parent or drug abuse and low self-esteem. And I do find this as well. I think that often a lot of this can be generational. I've seen it within my own family with mental health, for example, where I had a grandmother that struggled with mental illness. My father struggled with mental illness. My sister struggles with mental illness. And I think there's something really to that. I think in the genetic code, there is predisposition to a lot of these things. Now, it doesn't mean, I think a lot of people give their power away and become victims of circumstance. I always remind people, you might have started somewhere, but you have the power in the moment to actually, if you want to change that predicament. And I did that in my family. Now I've got family members, to be honest with you, that haven't done those steps, that are still in victimhood, and they remain in their disease, their depression, their anxiety, and they'll use every excuse under the sun, oh, it's genetic, I can't help it, there's nothing I can do, and they'll remain in victimhood. But see, we only remain victims when we allow ourselves to remain victims. And, when we're children, we don't have maybe the tools or the power to change, but when we're adults, we actually become responsible for our own life and the way our life comes out. And, this happens by the actions that we take, the words that we speak. Words are really powerful. They're powerful in transforming the way you think and the way your life unfolds. So there are so many tools that we can apply to really transform our lives.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you call it tools, and and that's what they are. They're tools, they're strategies, and they're all over the internet and in the mental health groups. There's so many places to go for help now. I know that the face-to-face people are hard to find at the moment. I know counselors and psychologists.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of counseling work and coaching work. And look, because we've been in lockdown here in Melbourne for, significant time, all of my clients have been online, but it's still really precious to people to be heard. And I think this is one of the most fundamental parts of therapy. And I certainly still work with my own therapist, and I've been doing that during this period of lockdown. I see it really imperative in my own life to have my own talk therapy, and I do that pretty regularly. And I found is we're still able to do this quite effectively online, and even like connecting in this space with all of you, we feel connected. Even though we're not in each other's vicinity, but we do still feel that connection. So technology is actually bringing a lot of us together, and I'm a big advocate of using technology for good and to allow people to come together and be supported.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a lot of things that have come out of this challenging time that have actually become benefits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just scrolling through, a couple of comments about bullying again, and I don't mean to dismiss bullying, but we'll move ahead. Massive transformations once you make the choice, says Steve. Steve also asks, do you think food was a safer option to drugs?
My personal opinion, it was. I didn't like what I saw drugs do to other people. And so I was really opposed to doing that. But, look, long-term unhealthy eating can be devastating on the body as well. There's no doubt about it. But for me, it was a better option. I don't think there isn't such a thing as a good addiction, but I think we need to be realistic about the process, is that people need an outlet, and food is one of those big things for people. Generally, when I work with people that are overweight or have struggled in this area, there is always an emotional reason for it. They're not just struggling with something biologically. There's an emotional driving force behind it.
Yeah, Tracy's saying, I didn't like what food did to me.
Mm.
Yeah, and Adam,
Yeah.
Steve says there's so much below the line thinking out there, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
And excuses and blame. Yep. And Adam asks a question that aligns with one of the things I wanted to ask you from an interview I heard. It says, Adam says, with restrictions, you've helped so many people, but what has this challenging time taught you with your inner self? So what has this period of COVID, for want of a better terminology, what has it taught you? What has it done for your inner self?
Yeah, great question. Look, it's been a huge journey, and as most of the audience will know, Melbourne is the most locked down city in the world. And it's been huge as far as the restrictions that come with that, and that means everything from it's masks indoors and outdoors, and all of this has a big psychological effect on people. And look, I've gone through a lot of emotions, ranging from anger to disbelief, what it's doing to people. And a lot of disappointment was coming up for me, particularly around government, and seeing that mental health wasn't taken into consideration, that it was something that was really being experienced in almost everyone I know around me, and it wasn't really brought to the forefront in the way that other things around this pandemic have. So that was a big disappointment for me. But with every disappointment is great opportunity. And so I really went and turned within, more so than I've done before, and really started to say, how can I turn this situation to not only benefit me, but benefit others? And I've really used this time to build up the practice that I have, and been making videos to support people and putting out encouraging messages. So even though I've been locked down, I haven't been held down, and I've been using what I have to help other people during this really challenging time. I think that we're seeing globally. It's quite unprecedented in this generation, of something of such magnitude affecting us all collectively at the same time.
Yeah, it's probably, I've said to a few people, I think it's probably the biggest thing in the world since World War II,
Oh, no doubt about
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
There's
no
been
doubt.
other wars and other events and catastrophic, 9/11. But I think in terms of the number of people affected and the mental health,
Yeah.
it's almost a century, really. So
Yeah, so I've really used that of, particularly here reading about, children presenting to hospitals with, for self-harm. I really wanted to use my voice in the best way I could during this time. And I think the aftermath of this will be significant. I think there's no shying away from that. People are now presenting with PTSD. Those effects will go on for years to come from everyone that's experienced it. And I want to be there for those people, to give them the tools that I got. So this is where I do reflect, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on my past. I'm glad that I have built up strong empathy within, to be able to now use the skills that I have and the knowledge I have to be able to be a part of this process of healing that I think is going to be playing out over the coming years.
Wonderful. It's wonderful work that you're doing, and I really appreciate what you're doing for others. We all do in here. So now tell us about your meditation book that's just been released.
Yeah, I'm really excited about. So look, I felt really inspired to write this book, and I did the initial release as an audio book. And the reason I did that is I hear a lot of people I work with, a lot of younger people, they don't have the concentration span to read. So I wanted to keep the book fairly short. It's under an hour, and it's available at the moment as a free audio book. And
Oh, that's beautiful.
I wanted to make it free as well, because particularly during this time, I could hear a lot of people saying, you know, financially that they're not in the position of doing that. So I really didn't want to exclude people from having the ability to hear the information. But I'm really excited about the book. I know, like we talked about earlier, the tools in order for you to transform your life. That's why I call the book Transform Your Life with Meditation, because it is one of those transformative tools that can really change the way you see and experience life. And for me, meditation, particularly during this long lockdown we've gone through, has been so imperative to me as a practice to really help me through the process. I couldn't have probably done it and been here talking in the way I am without that daily practice.
Daily, every day. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, I'll give you a bit of, you know, insight into the book here. But one thing I really hone in on the book is the importance of it being daily, because when we do stuff sporadically, we don't get the effect of it. And it's like, you know, I give this example is, you know, if you didn't brush your teeth every day, you wouldn't have very healthy teeth. But if you do it every day, just that, you know, session of brushing your teeth, then most likely your teeth will be fairly healthy. So it's kind of like this for the mind. You know, the mind is an organ in our body, and it's something that's really important that we keep, you know, looked after, even more so than maybe teeth. That could be argued. But I feel like, you know, when we do give this space in our life, particularly with the amount of information that is coming at us 100 miles an hour, you know, social media and news, and the cycle of this is coming at us at 100 miles an hour. So important that people find some sort of retreat into what I call stillness. And, you know, I always say to people, because they feel overwhelmed with the concept of meditation, when I first started my practice, I started with 3 minutes a day. And progressively, as my confidence grew and that became easier, I increased the time. So I'd always say, for someone that's potentially wanting to get the benefits of meditation and to start the journey, start with a minute. You know, you can set the timer on your watch or a clock and just do it for a minute, and then you can increase it over time. It's better starting off really simplistic than to go in all guns a blazing and not be able to sustain something. So it's really sustainable, but I really recommend strongly people start really simply.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the book would tell them how to do that?
Absolutely. I step through all of the basics. I talk about what meditation is, what meditation is not. I think that's a good distinction to make, because a lot of people have misconceptions. They think it's for some, you know, highly spiritual guru somewhere meditating on a rock, and it's just not really the case. Meditation really is for everyone, and you can tailor it to fit into your life, into your schedule. If you're time poor, if you've got a lot of time, you can completely tailor it. And I talk about different methods of meditation and how we can incorporate them into our individual lives and the benefits that it really presents. I mean, I would say for me, what was imperative of me getting out of depression and anxiety that I struggled with all of my life was one of the major tools in my toolkit was the practice of meditation. So look, for me, it's a special thing in my life, and I want to help other people have that as a tool in theirs as well. I think it's so important.
Beautiful. And people can get that if they just go to your page, they'll find a link to.
Yeah, they can find it on my page. I don't know if you can leave a link here for people,
Yeah, we
but they
will.
can download it for free, and it's an easy
Fantastic.
download. And I think you'll find it as
Yeah.
a great start to your own journey.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's wonderful. That's such a gift. So generous. Thank you.
yeah, no, particularly during this time, I think it's important that we be able to give what we can, because a lot of
Yeah.
people are hurting at the moment, and I didn't want to just be all talk and no action. So this is my action
Yeah, that's
in a
fantastic.
difficult time. So yeah, it's a
Wonderful.
pleasure to do that.
I'm just going to read Karen's comment. Words are so powerful. Now that I've identified where my thoughts were at and learned about raising my vibration through above the line thinking, I can say to myself, think happy thoughts, whereas before I would not have come up with that idea. It's wonderful. And I would have dismissed it if someone had suggested that to me, and that would have been too simple, and with below the line thinking being received by me as a lack of understanding by them. Yeah, well said, Karen. Karen has come a long way. I know Karen, and I know what she's achieved by doing the work.
Beautiful. And I love
Yeah,
that. I love that language, raise her
yeah,
vibration. You know, this is what I've actually got this on my homepage. Is my slogan, if you like, is, you know, I help people connect to their higher self and raise
yeah,
their vibration. And it's really important that we have a method to do that. You know,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, and there's so many, what do they call it in marketing? Points of entry now. As I said before,
mm,
you can get the book, you can do the program, you can find a coach, a counselor. There's so many ways in.
yeah, absolutely. And I enjoy working with people personally. That's a big
Yeah,
part of what I do. And it's probably the most reward, even though I like making videos and I like doing
yeah,
these interviews. I like working with people one-on-one, because
mm,
I can sort of hand feed that knowledge and wisdom that I have, and hold their hand along the way. And that I find incredibly rewarding.
beautiful. And tell us about quantum healing.
Yeah, very powerful part of what I practice is quantum healing, and that can sound a bit esoteric
Yeah,
for some
yeah,
people, but simply what that is, it's a hypnosis method that was developed about 40 years ago by a wonderful lady called Dolores Cannon, and
mm,
she has actually passed on. She was an American that developed this technique, and it's a very self-empowering technique where it helps a person to connect with what I call the higher self. Some people call it the subconscious. It's really essentially the same thing, but it's learning how to connect to the higher self, or the power within, or the spirit, whatever
mm,
label you call it. It doesn't really matter what label you use. It's the same thing. And through her method, she found that all the answers are really within all of us. And this
mm.
is something that I teach and I really strongly believe in. All the answers that we search for out there,
Yeah,
perhaps through the addiction, for me, it used to be the food. All
mm,
the answers to all the disease in our life are really found within. And quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is her method that I use, helps people connect with that information. So someone comes into me and they come with a list of questions of all the things that they want answered in their life, and
mm,
also any health issues that they have, because we see some amazing healings happen within the practice itself. Really long-term health issues that people have had, they can find that they can resolve them, because when they get to the root of what's causing maybe an ailment physically. And to give you an example of that, I found this over the years with people I've worked with, is people that suffer badly from arthritis. I have
mm,
found that the root cause of it generally is something around holding on to the past, unforgiveness, bitterness, and that manifests over a period of time in the body. So when we can get someone to work with the root, which is causing that, the miraculous thing that happens is that the symptom or the outward expression of that begins to dissipate and change. So this is what I mean. We really are so powerful, and with the right conditions and tools, we can really transform our life inside out.
Absolutely wonderful. It just sounds like such a great field. And, you know, there are so many modalities now, but I'm
Yeah,
always
there's so many
listening.
tools. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
that sounds a great tool to
It's
have.
a beau it's a, you know, the sessions aren't short. They go for about 5 hours. It sounds intense.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
always like describing it as a day for transformation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I say to people I work with, you know, could you give yourself a day or half a day if you knew it was going to transform your life? And I would
Yeah.
have to say to you that almost every person that comes to see me for a session, and I do this online, particularly been doing it through COVID, we make it
Great.
work quite effectively online as well as in
Yeah.
person, is every person always gets exactly what they need. And it's so heartwarming to see people literally transform their lives through this powerful methodology that I use. So
Have you got time on Monday? I'm free.
yeah, love to work with you. Yeah,
That sounds
or anyone
great.
watching. I just
Yeah.
it's you know, you want to
Yeah.
fix your life or transform it. It's a great method to use, you know.
Sounds
And
wonderful.
and you work out that the power comes from you. It's always
Yes.
been in you, and it always will be. You know, a lot of I think our culture is so fixated on, particularly marketing people working out. You know, if you
Yeah.
buy this or do this or lose this or do this, then you'll get it. But no, that is such a inversion of reality. The power has always been within us, and
Yeah.
everything that we need is
Yeah.
inside of us. But it's tapping into that great well that resides within.
Yeah. I'm going to let you just take a breath for a minute while I just read out a couple of things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
have a drink or whatever you need.
Yeah, I will actually have my
Yeah,
yeah.
good. Adam says this is a side issue that, but we always, on our lives, we always mention something that's coming up so that people can tune in. So tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. UK time, the Warrior Queen, Kerry Duval, will be back, and she welcomes the accidental journalist onto the show. Sounds interesting. And then a question for you from Adam. Paul, you said the word label. What does it mean from your perspective for when people are diagnosed with labels?
Yeah, look, great question, Adam. I think, you know, I think we can put labels on everyone, and we're so fixated, particularly in this climate that we find ourselves in. You know, there's a label for this and a label for that, and we've only ended up with more labels as
Yeah,
the time has gone on. Now we've got this plethora of labels, and, you know, we're this and that. You know, I think the way it was explained to me through you know, my journey of discovery is that a label is really not who you are. It's a way of describing what someone else thinks that you are. And I'm one that likes to uh, not derive a sense of self or identity from labels. So the way I see human beings or humanity is that I look, you know, beneath the label and see that we are all one at, you know, a deeper level. We're not our skin color, we're not our, you know, race, our sexuality, whatever it is, we are the consciousness beneath all those things. And that's the deeper level that I work with. And I also see humanity as, and you know, in that realm there is no space for hatred or racism or anything else, because I think what can be so divisive is judging and being separated by labels.
Mm, Yeah, well said. Well
Mm.
said. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, Paul. Mic
Well,
drop. Mic drop.
wonderful.
This is
Your
mic
life will
drop.
never be the same, I promise you that. Absolutely.
Mic drop.
It's
I love that.
life-changing.
So I'm just going to check my notes and see, because we're sitting at about 10 to 8. So I just want to make sure that I cover all the things that I wanted to ask you. I saw that you use the quote, "The journey of 1,000 miles." Tell us
Oh,
about
yeah, Louse
that.
It's
Lao
probably
Tzu.
one of my favorite quotes, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, it comes from the Tao Te Ching, and it's such a beautiful, spiritual work that was created so many centuries ago, and it's a beautiful saying.
yeah.
The journey of 1,000 steps begins with a single step,
Ah,
and
yes. Yeah,
it's kind of a great way to start a journey when you realize you don't have to get to the destination. You just have to focus on one step at a time.
beautiful. Yeah, I like that quote. That's great. And there was a few other things, from some of your interviews. Um, you started with Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now.
Yeah, that's probably the most profound book I read, and this actually was that I read this about 10 years ago now,
Mm.
and the first read it wasn't too remarkable, but I knew how much the book was affecting people's lives, so I read it for a second time, and on the
Mm.
second time, it just all really hit me, and I had what I term as a spiritual awakening. I
Yep.
really started to see the world very, very differently from that point forward. And my
Mm.
whole reality began to change. And I began to go through, like we talked about earlier, the work, the healing work. And I realized that there was so much that I needed to do personally. And this is where my own journey started. And through that process, the weight came off, the depression dissipated over time. I started to heal the past. I had to work on forgiveness. Forgiveness was something that I carried within myself. Had a lot of hatred towards those that had wronged me in my life, and I really
Yep.
held that quite strongly as a part of who I was. And it
Mm.
was only what I realized through this awakening experience, it was only really harming me. And
That's
so
right.
I had to learn to let go of people that had hurt me, and
Yeah.
that included some family members and so on. And now those relationships are wonderful, and I'm able to have great relationship with those people that I
Yeah.
had held on to long-term resentment towards.
Yeah. So you've created that change, which is wonderful. And it made me think of another good book, Letting Go, David Hawkins, who also
Yeah, great book as
develops,
well.
the,
Yeah.
the levels of consciousness that we've been talking about,
That's
raising
another great,
vibration.
actually, that
Yeah.
another wonderful book. I'm glad you mentioned
Yeah.
that. It's a great book
Mm.
by
Yeah.
David Hawkins, and it articulates the
Yeah.
point so well.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of recommendations for people there to start your journey. Follow Paul's page, follow this page. Adam's asking a cheeky question. Would you recommend the Mental Health Warriors?
Oh, well, I don't know a lot about it, but it sounds pretty amazing to me.
Oh,
I'll take a look at it, and
yeah.
I
That's
love the vibe of this group already. It's
yeah.
really nice. I can sense that,
Yeah.
real connection with everyone in the group, which is a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's lovely. And Gail says, I think people use labels as a way to feel in control, secure, comfortable, to make sense of their experience in the world. Full compassion. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well
And so limiting when we're defined by,
said.
a label, something, we are so much more vast and great, and we are
Yeah.
consciousness itself. And to be sort of pigeonholed into such a tiny thing is a disservice
Yeah.
to people, really, because we're so much more than the labels that we're given.
Yeah. We actually had a discussion on here recently, myself and Steve Knapp, the Mindset Warrior, and was it Adam? Anyway, we had a discussion about labels. So it's interesting, yeah, and how they can become, you know, a crutch, really, you know, a weight, you know, that holds us back if we rely on those labels. So now, one thing that I want to do to finish up is I'm launching my show, and this was sort of the first night. I'll do a big launch next week, but my emoji model has different tools in the toolkit. So I wanted to just throw some quick fire questions at you, where you just give us a quick answer. Is that all right?
Great. Absolutely. Far
So
away.
here's the tools. E is for exercise. What do you do?
I run and go to the gym, and I haven't been able to go to the gym for some time, but I do get out and run every day, and that's a great way of letting off any sort of built up anxiety or tension that I've maybe experienced during the day. Yeah.
Great. Energy. How do you create energy?
Meditation is a great way of starting the day and putting myself on a trajectory of having great energy during the day.
Beautiful. Emotions. What do you do with them? You know,
Um, I allow myself to experience them. I think a lot of people don't allow. So I allow. I don't bottle up. I used to bottle them up
yeah,
and hold them inside, and now I allow them to be without
beautiful.
judging.
Yeah, I started to do the push down, you know, and then I
Yeah,
stopped to let
yeah,
you
not a
say,
good
yeah,
repression is never great.
yeah. And we've covered the M's are mindfulness and meditation. And what about music?
Oh, I'm a big opera fan.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
And, so it's my kind of go-to relaxing music is opera, and
Yeah.
it's my favorite.
Oh, I love that. I do like opera as well. And O is, we've probably talked about this, own your shizzle in my model, owning your behaviors and changing what you need to change and taking action. And we also have essential oils. I don't know if you've had anything to do with
Yeah,
those.
beautiful. Yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. J, one of the J's is journaling. Has that been something that you've used?
Absolutely. And one specific way of doing it, I call it my gratitude journal. I write down all the things I'm grateful for each day. And it's such a powerful practice because, what we focus on expands. And
Yep.
when we actually put our focus on, and you don't necessarily have to take a long time doing this, what we write down, we can really start to go, oh, yeah, I'm really grateful for these things. So it's a great practice as well.
Love it.
Is a gratitude journal.
Great. And so we're nearly there. I mean, there's for each letter, there's quite a few things. And the idea is that people can add their own tools to the model.
Mm.
But the one I've got quite a few for I, inner work, inner health.
Yeah.
There's a few there. But the one I want to ask you about is inner child.
Oh, this is a beautiful area. Yeah, I've done a lot of work, and I do with my clients. I'm working with the inner child. I get some great affirmations that I use daily that really helps connect to the inner child and recognize it. And I've written a lot on my social media channels about working with the inner child. So it's a very important part. Um, of my work.
Great. Oh, well, I think that'll be enough for emoji for tonight. I'll be doing a lot more on emoji over the next few weeks. Mental
Love it.
Health Warriors, that must be Adam and Kerry. Awesome show. And Lillian says, I love my gratitude journal as well. I'm so happy
Beautiful.
and grateful that, and
Beautiful.
then dot, dot, dot. Yeah, love it. And I think that's a great place for us to wind up is gratitude, being grateful for where we are, that we can do something like this together. you know, and invite people in, and then share this. Adam asks that everybody does share this and join and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Mental Health Warriors. Definitely jump onto Paul's page and get hold of that free, very generous meditation book. I think that's just a wonderful gesture during this time. Karen says, thanks for the interview. I am very grateful. Well done, Karen. Great discussion, says Lillian. Thanks, Sharon and Paul. And look, I'd just like to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Pleasure. It's been great connecting with you all. I've really enjoyed this time. It's been
and thank you for your time. I know you're very, very busy, but you've given us that time tonight, and we'll share it far and wide and get some more people into your big group as well. And just some amazing insights tonight, Paul. And I'm just, you know, I admire you so much, all the work that you've done, and then to find out, you know, that you've come through those challenging times and adversity, and I just want to give you a big hug.
Thank you.
A big Auntie Shaz a hug.
I wish we could do it in person. Maybe next time we can do it in person.
Yeah, I'd like to adopt you as one of my nephews, if that's okay.
I love that.
Oh dear, I have a lot of nephews in the coaching industry, so
beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. A lot of nephews, a lot of nieces, and just some beautiful people out there doing wonderful work, and we love what you're doing, and I'm so glad we were able to have you on tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Great to join with you.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. And we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
There's nothing.